So one thing I would love to just hear about, because I'm into the lore and the magic of it all. I'm curious how you connected with Joe Dispenza.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a great story. So,
Hey everybody. Our mission here at the Heart Coherence Collaborative is to get people in touch with the healing power of the heart.
And we really need your help. Right now, only 1% of viewers subscribe. We are aiming to take that number to 6%.
The reason why we want to do that is the more people that subscribe, the more people in the world can learn the magical practice of heart coherence.
So please help us out. If you ever listened, if you love this message, please just take a moment to subscribe.
Thank you so much. Welcome everyone to the Heart Coherence Collaborative. We are really excited today because we have Natalie Ledwell with us. And the reason this is so amazing and why I'm so excited is because about 7 years ago, I was given Joe Dispenza's book, Becoming Supernatural. And that book was kind of like a blueprint on how I could transform my life, which was not good at the time, to my dream life. And one of the components in that book that he talks about is mind movies. And so Mind Movie is this very amazing software that you can use to plug in your dreams into this video formula, which we'll talk about in more depth. I know you're going to be way better at explaining it, but it brings your dream life to reality really quickly. And I'll just start by saying one of the things that I put in that Mind Movie at the time, I was pretty much a loner. I had no friends at the time that were in the spiritual community, spiritual world. And one of the things I put in my Mind Movie was I love my spiritual tribe that's growing rapidly. And that actually caused the Heart Coherence Collaborative, all these different things that now exist to come into fruition just because it was in my Mind Movie. So thank you for creating this beautiful technology. We'd love to just first welcome you and then hear how this journey for you came about.
yeah. Well, like all amazing things, it was totally by accident.
Nice.
So it was back in 2006. So Glenn, my then husband, and I, we were serial entrepreneurs. And at the time, I think we had 4 businesses we were running at the same time. And I remember having a day looking at my bank account and looking at my bills and going, I'm missing some vital piece of information here because how are we still struggling when we're working our tails off?
Mm.
And we've got all these businesses, but we just don't seem to be getting anywhere. It's like we were a car up on a jack and the wheels were turning, but we just, weren't making any progress. And then a friend suggested that I download a movie called The Secret, or, actually, we ordered the DVD back then. And so when Glenn and I watched this movie, I was like, oh, I go, where has this been all my life? Like, I had, started to become a student of personal development when I was 21 years old. A boss of mine handed me a set of cassettes by Brian Tracy and said, here, listen to these. And I'm just like, what? So I knew how to set goals. I knew how to think positively. I knew all those kind of things. But I'm like, oh, this visualization piece, this not needing to know the whole plan piece. I'm like, okay, this is good. So not long after that, a friend of ours approached Glenn and I. He's like, guys, I want to go into business with you. We're like, dude, we don't need another business. We're strapped. And he's like, no, I've got this great idea. And he showed us this video that he put together. And back then, he had PowerPoint slides that had affirmations written on them, which was describing what he wanted in his life. Then in between those PowerPoint slides were photos that matched those affirmations, and then he had a song over the top. So it was this really cool version of a vision board. And I'm like, dude, that is awesome. He goes, I want to set up a website. Let's, get the instructions out there so people around the world can make these movies for themselves. And so, we didn't know what we were doing. We put a little video up on YouTube, and that little video had so much traffic coming in, and people purchasing this little, we were calling it the creation kit, which was really Camtasia videos showing them how to put this stuff together. So basically, once that happened, we had so many emails coming from people going, this is changing my life.
Mm.
I'm like, guys, we have to figure out this internet thing. How do we do this? I think we're making a difference in people's lives here. This is, we have to focus on this. And so we realized you could buy programs online that would teach you. So we bought a program. Frank Kern, the guy who created that program, decided he was going to do a live event in San Diego in April of 2008. So we're like, right, we've got to go meet this guy. Like I go, he's a genius. We implemented one idea and made our money back on the $2,000 we invested in the program. I'm like, okay. So we went to the seminar. We got accepted into his mastermind group. We stayed here in the US for like 5 months, just working 10-hour days, um, just orchestrating a launch of my movies to the world. So by the time we get to the launch, which is September 2008, when economic crisis has hit the planet, everyone's losing their shirts and their homes and their jobs and everything. We ended up doing a $700,000 week.
Wow.
Selling, this little $97 program, which had CDs and that as well, helping people to figure out what they wanted their life to be, and to articulate that in this medium of affirmations, photos, and music. So that's kind of what put us on the map, and that's how we got started.
Wow.
So now it's like, 15 years later, we've reached over 10 million people. We're now working in schools, and helping people with their mental health and emotional intelligence. So we've really morphed into this big concern, but it's just started from that one little idea that we said yes to, even though we had no idea what we were doing.
What was your life and background like that you would be open to this? How did you grow up? What was your faith? And how do you arrive to be the person who's open to this as an adventure?
Well, I think I've always known I was an alien of sorts. I grew up in a country town in Australia, and I'm one of 8 kids. So I grew up in a big country family. It was very obvious that I thought differently to everyone else in my family, and then everyone else in my town. So I left home I left school when I was 15. I left home when I was 17. I left my hometown when I was 18. Moved to Sydney, didn't know a soul, just knew I could not stay there 1 minute longer. And so I was luckier. My first career was in the fitness industry. And like I said, I worked for I was managing fitness clubs when I was 21. And again, I didn't know what I was doing. I just talked my way into these jobs and going, I think I can do a better job than you. I can figure this out. So I've always been very tenacious. I've been, and pretty resilient. And I'm like, I can just figure it out. So I've always had that mindset. But of course, back then, a lot of the guys that I worked for would invest a lot of money in their teams. So they were the ones that was sending me to Tony Robbins and Zig Ziglar and Jim Rohn and all the big speakers back then. And I was, at the age of 24, I'm on stage talking to club owners from all over Australia, helping them to systemize their business and how to manage their teams. And again, it was all self-taught. It was just, I haven't got a lot of formal education, but I'm always listening to podcasts and books and reading and all of those kind of things. So I think that and the natural ability that I had just to go, I can figure this out, was what got me to this. And Glenn and I, when we met, our first business together was a nightclub, and we had, coffee franchises and, we were able to, it didn't matter what kind of business it was, we were always able to make it work. Glenn and I separated 10 years ago now, and we're still business partners and we're still best mates, because our skill sets complement each other when it comes to business. And to have a business partner who we've been in business together now around 30 years in all these different businesses. So to say I feel like one of the luckiest girls on the planet, because not only do I have, Glenn as my business partner, but I have a partner that I can trust, that we always have our backs. And even when things get tough, we both know that we'll do whatever it takes to get through it. So yeah, I feel very fortunate in that regard. So really I've done everything. And I mean, like I said, now I'm working in schools. I have no formal education for this either, but again, I've just I can see that there's something that needs, people that need help here, and I have the ability to attract the right resources and the right people to help me make it happen. So I don't take full credit for all of it myself. It's definitely a team effort.
Beautiful. Yeah, so my experience was kind of like, I'm reading this book, I hear Joe Dispenza talking about it. I'm like, that's crazy, but I'll try it anyway. So I buy the software, I put all the pictures of who I want to become linked with the affirmations of who I want to become. And then I start listening to it in the morning and at night, watching it in the morning and at night. And then it just shows up. It literally just starts showing up. Like, why does that happen?
Okay, let me explain why that happens. So, first of all, most people go through life and they may know that they want to be wealthy and they may know they want to be happy, but they don't exactly know what that means to them. So, one of the beautiful things about a mind movie is that you have to get pretty clear about what wealth means to you, or what happiness means to you, what love means to you, what that looks like. So,
Mm.
when you can start to get a little more detailed, and so when I'm coaching people on how to make their mind movie, I go, okay, start with your affirmations first. You want to describe in words, like positive words. So you want to be saying things like, I'm debt free, because that will conjure up a picture of debt in your mind. So using the right words, writing these out, these little statements out in present tense. The reason we do that is because when you read them, you then have to imagine them as if they're happening now. You know, you need to visualize that. So when you're thinking about what you want and you're describing what life looks like when you get it, you're describing why you want it, because this is your motivation. You're also thinking about, well, what do I need to do? What actions do I need to take to get there? You're also thinking, well, how do I need to change the way I think? So, what are the new thoughts I want to be adopting? Because if my thoughts have got me to this point in life, and I want something different for myself, if I change the way I think and change the thoughts I'm thinking, then that's going to help me to create a different outcome. And then the last one is like, well, who do I need to become?
Mm.
Like, who is this person who is wealthy? You know, what are the characteristics? Because I think sometimes, you know, if we haven't had an example in our life of wealth, like maybe we come from, you know, regular family, middle class, whatever, um, we we have this vision that either was put into our minds by our parents, or, you know, when we were growing up, that, you know, rich people are bad and they must be crooks and they did something illegal to get all that money and blah blah blah. So we have those thoughts in our mind. So we're subconsciously pushing ourselves away. But when you can write out affirmations to go, you know, no, I'm generous, you know, I'm giving, I'm you know, and all of these attributes that you want to have, which you can step into now, before you even get that wealth or the happiness or whatever that is that you're going for. So once you can describe all of this pretty extensively, now your mind has gone right. It's already starting to think along these lines. Then you add the images, and you know, and have, if you've done a Dr. Joe event, he talks about how when you're visualizing, you really want to just focus on one moment that is going to occur when you reach this goal. So, you know, for me, I did a Love Mind movie a few years ago, and I met this amazing guy. And the vision that I would see is us on the beach, and I could feel the deck chair underneath my body. I could feel the warmth of the sun on my skin. I could smell the ocean and hear the waves. I'm eliciting all of my senses in this moment, and I'm making it so real in my mind that my subconscious mind doesn't know the difference.
Mm.
So it thinks that this is actually happening now,
Mm.
right? But then the secret sauce that comes in over the top is the music, because the music is, when we're visualizing, it's not just what we see that's important, it's what we're feeling.
Mm.
Because when we look at something basic, like a basic universal law, like the law of attraction, we know that if we're resonating at a certain frequency, then other things that are resonating in that frequency will easily be attracted to us. You know, these are all the things that we need. Now, how do we change our frequency? What actually manipulates that? It's our thoughts and our feelings,
Mm.
our thoughts and emotions.
Mm.
So when our thoughts and our emotions are in alignment with this vision that we're seeing, um, our thoughts will automatically influence our actions. So things that we may have found difficult to do before become easier, because now we've got this trifecta of thoughts, emotions, and actions all in alignment. So now we're just this homing beacon for everything that we need to make it happen. And we feel like we already have it. We're already stepping into this frequency, which we need to be in for these things to start to show up. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'd love to hear you talk about affirmations. I feel like People say different things about whether affirmations are good or bad, or that if you do an affirmation that your brain is really fighting against, it could be counterproductive. So
Yeah.
I'd like to hear you talk about affirmations and what happens if you're not fully bought into the affirmations that you're using.
Yeah, well, the way that we use affirmations is different to most.
Mhm.
Now, I agree. If you're standing in front of the mirror and you're saying, I am thin when you're overweight, or if you're saying that I am happy when you're feeling depressed, then you're right. That's useless. That's not going to do anything. And if anything, it's going to be bringing up, a lower frequency emotions, which is not what we want. We want to be in these higher frequencies. So the way that we use affirmations is as a description of the future that we're creating, and we're just describing it as if it's happening now. So
Mm.
that's the way that we use it. And the thing is, when you are visualizing, you do have to imagine that it's happening now. So when you're reading those affirmations, it makes it easier if it's written in present tense, because it's like, oh right, I am, I'm, and you're imagining whatever visualization that is, or whatever scenario that is, but you have to see it as if it's a moment that you're completely and utterly immersed in the present moment. So yeah, for me, and remember, the words we use are very powerful. They carry a resonance and a frequency as well. So the words that we choose, and I think that when we're writing affirmations, we can be more deliberate about the words that we use. Because we can absolutely say, I want to be pain free, or I don't want to struggle anymore. And a lot of people are very aware of what they don't want. So when we can be articulate in going, well, what is the opposite of that? So if I don't want to struggle, then what is the opposite? What is it that I do want? Because these are the words that we need to use. This is the vision I need to have. So rather than like, I don't want to struggle, I would say, I move through my day with ease and grace.
Mm.
And that's what I'm focusing on. That's what my brain goes to. We're not going to the negative. We're going to the thing that we actually do want. And so after a while, when you get into the practice of thinking of the things that you want, and then writing out these affirmations, soon you find that your brain will start to default to the positive. And naturally our brains default to the negative, and this has been part of the survival mechanism. And we have to really work at creating these new neural pathways. And the only way that we do it is through repetition and practice.
Mm.
So once you get into the habit of that, you'll find yourself catching yourself and going, oh no, I don't want to say that. What is the opposite of that? What is the stuff that I actually do want? And that if you'll find that it starts to naturally start to change your language as well. It's pretty cool.
That's great. And in my experience, you can use this for anything you want. At that point in time, I wasn't really eating that well. So I made a mind movie specifically for nutrition.
Mm.
And all of a sudden, my friends were reaching out to me saying, hey, do you want to do this 10-day program? And I was like, sure. Next thing you know, I was selling that program, which was crazy. But it's like it converted me into somebody who was very connected to what I was putting in my body um, within a short period. So the one thing I really like about mind movies is that you have like kind of two ways you can go about this. Is one, you have this software where you can create all your own custom, whatever you want to put in there, you
Yeah.
can do. And then you have some that are custom made already. I've actually never done the custom. I always just made my own, but I'm curious, what are the ones that you have available that are like pre-made? And what are
Yeah.
some of the results you've seen with those?
Yeah, so the purpose of the pre-mades, number one, because we're discussing, we've seen a mind movie, we know what that's like. But if someone's listening to this right now, they go, "Oh, I don't really quite get it." So we have pre-made mind movies that you can download for free, which gives you an idea, number one, of what a mind movie looks like. But number two, once you start to watch these, and these are pretty generic, around confidence, around wealth, love, relationships. Once you start to watch that, then your brain starts to go into, ooh, that's what that looks like for me. Or that's what, yes, I'm wealthy, but then your brain will start to go, Yeah, so when I'm wealthy, I'm, having a massage once a week, or I'm, eating out at lovely restaurants, or I'm, doing whatever, traveling. So then your brain starts to do that, So it's like we're suggesting for you. So watching the pre-mades helps you to get clearer about what it looks like for you, or what that subject means for you. So it's a great way to get started. And even in itself, like the one on confidence, people are reporting that they're feeling confident within a couple of weeks. They go, it really has made a difference. And I think because, remember, my movie is really just a tool. And it's kind of like a visualization. Well, it's a visualization tool. So when you're watching that a couple of times a day, then you are training your brain again to go into these, I call them, like a mental vacation into your future. You're starting to intentionally sit there and think about what that future looks like, and start to visualize and feel what that's like. Now, remember, the more that you can do that, like we talked earlier about, how you want to elicit all of your senses. Now, the first couple of times you do that kind of visualization, you may need to sit down with your eyes closed and concentrate a little bit on what that is. But then once you've created that, you don't have to sit down with your eyes closed. You could be walking down the street. You could be vacuuming the house. You could be driving the car. You could be doing anything that doesn't require a lot of, conscious thought, and be going on these little, these little mental vacations. And especially if you're playing the song that's connected to your mind, maybe your brain will start to populate already. And so you've got that emotion that song is invoking, and, you're going into that visual. It's pretty cool.
Hmm. I feel like you're touching on it a little bit with the pre-made mind movies, but do you have any other advice for people who say, I don't know what I want? This is a foreign concept to me because I always know too much of what I want. Like I might be too clear.
Yeah.
Right? But some people really, that's their stuck point. Like, I don't really know I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what I want to do for work. So what's your best advice and help for people that are at that stage?
Yeah. So at the beginning, you don't need to be super clear, but as you start to take action, things will become clearer. So let's say, for example, you want to create wealth in your life. You go, okay, so how are you going to do that? And you've got a couple of choices. You could, get into a career, or you could start a business. Which one? And people will go, yeah, business sounds like a lot of responsibility. I think I'd rather go into a career. You go, great. So step one, I have a successful career that creates a lot of wealth in my life. So you can start there. So then you're going to go, okay, well, if that is a career, then what's that going to be? So then you go to the next level of questions. Well, what is it that you're good at? What is it that you like to do? What have have people complimented you about in the past? And so you sit down and think about that and go, you know what, I'd really like to work with animals. You go, great. So the next level of that is, now I want to work with animals. So then you start to do a little research there as well. Now you may start to go down that road of research and start to take action, and maybe volunteer at the local shelter, or do, whatever that is. So you're going to start taking action, but by doing that and creating that momentum and starting in that direction, things are going to start to show up, because you're thinking about, I want to have this successful career that's working with animals, that's going to create some wealth. And because you're training your brain to think of that, and more than that, you're training your reticular activating system, which is this bundle of nerves at the bottom of your brain, saying, this is what's of interest to me. So, and it acts as the gateway between the 40 million bits of data that a subconscious mind's processing every second, and the 40 bits of data that we're aware of in our conscious mind. It decides which out of the 40 million is going to come through the conscious mind. But because you've trained it to go, anything that shows up around this career with animals that's going to create some wealth, it's going to make sure that you notice it, and that you see it, and that you're conscious of it. Now, a lot of times these are things that were already there, but because you weren't really focused on it, you kind of didn't notice it. It's like I love back when I was living in Australia, Glenn and I wanted to buy a new car, and I wanted a convertible, but I wanted a hardtop. And so he did a little bit of research, and he said, I think we should get an EOS. I go, what the hell's an EOS? And he goes, it's a VW, blah, blah, blah. And I saw it, on the computer. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty cute. Next day I saw 10 of them. I'm like, they were always there, but they were just never in my conscious before. So that's kind of how that works as well. And again, even it doesn't matter what action you take, it's always going to lead you to where you're going to go anyway.
Mm.
Like before Ryan, our friend, came to us with this idea of mind movies, one of the businesses that we were in was like a network marketing business. And I'm like, ooh, the first time we have a business where we can leverage, and don't have to show up to work in, brick and mortar. I'm like, this is great. So, write out all these affirmations for that particular business about, traveling, speaking on stage and creating all this wealth and helping people and all of that kind of thing. Now, if someone had said to me, yeah, you're going to be able to realize all of those affirmations, all those goals, and you're going to do it through the internet, I would have laughed at them because I knew how to turn it on and I knew how to use Word, and that was it. But that's kind of how it went. But the thing is, if we hadn't have been in that network marketing business, we would never have met Ryan, who was the guy who came to us with the idea. So, it breadcrumbs will always lead the way. You're always on the right path, but as long as you're always taking steps forward and moving in a forward direction, things will always show up for you.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So for anyone listening, just imagine your favorite song is playing, and then just like images of your dream life are just flashing one by one with the affirmations of who you want to become underneath them. And you just watch that in the morning and at night. You do that long enough, it just shows up. And it's really that simple. And it's crazy, but it really works. And
Yeah.
so one thing I would love to just hear about, because I'm into the lore and the magic of it all. I'm curious how you connected with Joe Dispenza.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, that's a great story. So it was a mutual friend connected us together.
Mm.
Uh, Dr. Joe had seen my movie, and he had already in his mind a vision of how he wanted to use it in his work. And so he came down to San Diego, met Glenn and I at our office down there, and he invited us to go to one of his progressive workshops. So this is 2013. So not only did we go up to Seattle, but this is back when he was living, in the Magic Forest. He used to call it the ranch or something, but it was like the Magic Forest. And so we stayed there in a little apartment above the stables where all the Spanish dancing horses were. Like it was just, and we did a tour around the whole property, and it was so magical. Like there was this little meditation garden, then you had to go through this little door, and there was little fairies and things in the trees, and you'd be walking through the clearing, and this huge Buddha would be there that was carved out of stone. They just dropped the stone and carved the Buddha, and it was just crazy. We got to meet the whole team, and then in the progressive. So this is the first time I'm experiencing Dr. Joe's work. And I'm like, oh, I'm home. This is amazing. This is so good. And I'm meditating and the whole thing. And I can hear Glenn behind me just, being fidgeting and breathing loud. And I'm just like, oh my God, I'm going to kill you. Everyone can hear you. Just calm down there. So then the next day, we went out that night. And then the next day I'm back there and Glenn slept in a little. And then Dr. Joe's like, we're going to do 3 meditations today. So I just text Glenn and go, don't bother coming in. Just say whatever. So I think it was Pride weekend in the Seattle. So he went to the Pride parade, and I stayed in and did all the meditations. And then only a couple of months later, Glenn and I separated. And it was so funny because everyone else was like, oh, I didn't see that coming. When I spoke to Dr. Joe, he's like, oh, he goes, you guys were so disconnected. Like, he goes, I am not surprised at all. I'm like, well, you're the only person on the planet. So yeah, so that's kind of how we got started. So then we started taking teams to the events to help people with their mind movies, and had some incredible experiences, with Dr. Joe and his team, and all of the participants. Have personally helped thousands of people make their mind movie. And it's still every time. I remember one woman, she came into a workshop and she sat down, she's got her arms closed like this. And I'm like, all right, guys, I'll look after this lady. So I go over and I go, honey, can I help you? And she goes, look, I'm only here because Dr. Joe said I had to be, and I don't have a computer, and I'm not very technical, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, that's all right. I'll loan you my computer. So I got her started. I think about 30 minutes later, she had a mind movie. And I said, well, do you want to preview it before we send it off to the processor? And she goes, sure. And she sat there and she just started crying.
Mm.
She goes, oh my God. She goes, this is my life. And I
Mm.
got to experience that thousands of times over. So I feel very, very fortunate that I was in that position and that I could serve in that way. It was just amazing.
So cool.
I would love to hear one or two of the coolest stories that you've heard of people manifesting something in their movie.
Yeah. Well, we had one woman in Australia. This was at a Dr. Joe event. Her and her husband were, having some financial difficulties, so they were trying to sell their house, and had been on the market for like a month, no offers. And so she said to her husband, "Look, it's okay, honey. We'll figure it out." And then she goes, "I'm off to Dr. Joe event." So she came to the main event. So how Dr. Joe would use the mind movies normally is that he would, so you would, he'd get you to watch this big kaleidoscope up on the screen,
Mm.
and the kaleidoscope takes you into trance, which means you're in suggestible mind. So everyone's watching the big screens up there, and then he goes, "Okay, go to your mind movie." So then everyone has their headphones in, so they're watching their mind movie repeatedly. So they're in suggestible mind, but now they're watching their mind movie, so it's kind of going in. And then he goes, all right, back to the kaleidoscope. All right, so watch the kaleidoscope. Then you back to your mind movie. Then you go back to the kaleidoscope, but just listen to the song of your mind movie while you're looking at the kaleidoscope. So now your brain is starting to populate. This song becomes an anchor.
Mm.
And, it's starting to go, oh, this is what this means, the whole thing. And then we'd go into a meditation. And so while we're in meditation and connected to the unified field, he's like, choose a moment or a slide from your mind movie and imagine as if it's happening now. And so this lady could see herself in her living room. She feels the pen in her hand. She's signing the contract. She can smell the real estate agent's aftershave. She can feel the bubbles of champagne on her nose because they're celebrating. And she's just feeling relief, just absolute relief, because now it'll help them with their financial challenges. So then she goes back to the room that night after the day, and her husband sent her a text going, "Call me." So he goes, "We got an offer on the house," and he goes, "It's not what we asked for," but he goes, "I think we should take it." She goes, "No, no, just wait." So we go through a process again the next day using my movies, and so this time she sees the amount at the top of the contract, and 3 days later they got the offer that they wanted on the house, which is pretty
Nice.
amazing.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and then there was this South African lady as well who was in. There was just one of the Australian events, and she had ALS and had been in a wheelchair for 7 years. And in her mind movie, she got how she's mobile, how she's walking, and we saw her get out of her chair and walk several steps on the beach that day, which was just, I mean, there was not a dry eye. Like everyone's bawling.
Wow.
It was so intense. But I often, will bump into people at, restaurants or the airport or something, and they go, "Oh my God, I have to tell you, I made my movie a few years ago, and then I kind of forgot about it, and then I found it again and realized that everything in that mind movie has come true." And I hear that over and over again. And I think that what happens is that when we get clear about what it is that we want, and even if it's for a short period of time, uh, it's in there. We're already starting to take action. We're already resonating in alignment with those things. And even when we're not intentionally putting effort into it, and sometimes that's the better way to go, because if you're too desperate and too, you want it so bad, you're in those feelings of, frustration or impatience, that they're low frequency emotions. We don't want to hang out there. But when you kind of release it, it's amazing how things will show up. Like I have a girlfriend of mine who I know through the internet marketing circles, who's also been to a Dr. Joe event. She put a photo in her mind movie. She wanted to move to Mexico. And not only did she get a condo, but it was the exact photo. Like she realized that when she walked out onto the balcony, she's like, "Oh, wow." She goes, "This is," and she showed me, she goes, "It's the actual condo. It's the actual apartment that she bought." Photo from the balcony. It's crazy.
I remember having some of those moments because there was this period where I was doing the mind movie and I was doing a ton of heart coherence and I was just super connected. And I was just like going through life and I was like, I've seen this before, and
Yeah.
recognizing that it was something very similar to what was in my movie. Now, I know you have the basic program where you can import your photos that makes it very, very easy to create a mind movie. But what other programs do you have available for people to use for the
Yeah.
mind movie stuff? Yeah.
So the next step up from Mind Movies is the Mind Movies Matrix. So this program is super cool because these mind movies are already made for you, but we've combined them with brainwave entrainment audio and subliminal audios.
Oh.
So the brainwave entrainment audio, it's like this, it sounds like a buffeting sound, like a helicopter or something. But what this sound is doing is it's taking your brain into suggestible mind.
Mm.
So you're listening to the buffeting and you're watching this mind movie, and that is actually going straight into your subconscious because your mind is open and you're taking in that information. So similar to what the kaleidoscope would do with the Dr. Joe events, this is what this audio does. So you listen to the brainwave entrainment, one in the morning, and you choose whatever theme, whether it's relationships, health, wealth, business, career, whatever, and then you watch the same my movie in the evening, but you watch the one that's got the subliminal audios connected to it. So it actually has music, but underneath the music is laced all of these affirmations that are actually the affirmations that are in the mind movie, but you can't consciously hear it, but subconsciously you can. So it's picking up all of that. So that we get a lot of emails from people going, "Oh my God, it just completely changed the way I think." They go, and for the first time in my life, I actually believe I'm going to be able to achieve this.
Mm.
Which is a big key in being able to create what you want. You have to believe that you can do it and expect that it's going to happen. And then our next step up from that is my USM program, which is called the Ultimate Success Masterclass. So this is 12 modules, and when you join, you get lifetime access to go. And I have people that go through it multiple times. So every time they're focusing on a new goal, they'll come back and go through the 12 modules again, because it's breaking everything down into the basics. How to set your intention, how to create your mind movie, what action, how to tap in to get that inspired action and that inspiration from, either your intuition or the collective consciousness, wherever you want to call that from, how to recognize any, old programs and limiting beliefs that are coming up. And then we teach you EFT, so you know how to release those. And then looking at, and evaluating, well, is what I'm working towards in alignment with my values and who I really am? So you can make some tweaks there. So it's kind of like the blueprint of how to create anything you want. But sometimes people go through a number of times just so they can get that little refresher and making sure that they're following all those steps to make sure that they can create what they need and want.
Cool.
Yeah, so cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, we will have a link in the description that if I know so many people are going to be interested in the mind movie or even in the other things that you talked about. So we'll have all of that underneath this video.
Yeah, it really works. So
yeah,
I'm gonna get back into it because just hearing you talk about it, I'm excited to try the one with the subliminal.
That's what I was
so
thinking
cool.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
they're fun. They're great.
Well, how else can anybody listening support you or get in touch with you if they're interested in learning more about my movies?
Yeah, I mean, if you go to, we'll send you some links so you can download the free My Movies if you like, or if you want to, go in and into the software. But if there's anything else that you have questions about, you can just email me at natalie@mymovies.com, and my team can make sure that we get back to you, and I can get back to you and make sure that we answer any questions. But sometimes I think that we look at the simplicity of what a mind movie is and go, really, is that going to really work? I don't know about that. But like I said, I'm still, every day we get emails from people going, "You're not going to believe," and I'm thinking, I probably will, but tell me anyway.
Awesome.
Yeah, we love them. And honestly, just sitting with you is a result of a mind movie.
Yeah.
Because all of this manifested from the original mind movie. So it's kind of like a full circle moment.
It is crazy to think
And its own proof that it
Yeah.
works, just that we're with you. So it was so cool to sit down with you, Natalie. Thank you so much.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you for inviting me. This has been so much fun, And I'm so happy that you are a product of, how like a simple idea like this can actually work. So I really appreciate you inviting me, and I've had the best time. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, everybody. And if I get a chance, I'll dig up my old Mind movie and maybe add some clips to the end of this that people can check out and see how they've come to life. So,
yeah.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Natalie.
Again.
Thank you, everybody. This interview is part of our 30-day Heart Coherence Challenge.
During these challenges, we send you a heart coherence meditation every day for 30 days, each designed to bring powerful healing benefits.
Throughout the event, we also release incredible interviews with guest speakers who inspire and uplift, like the one you're listening to right now.
If you would like to join a future challenge, go to www.heartcoherencecollaborative.com and register now. The link is in the description.
We're sending you love and hope you join us for the next challenge.
We
love you.